Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to discuss about the pancreas. So pancreas, it is a soft lobulated gland. So the pancreas, you can see here, this is a soft lobulated gland consisting of both exocrine and endocrine parts. This is the soft lobulated gland. It has got exocrine part and an endocrine part, and there is a very little amount of connective tissue in the gland. And situation, if we see, it extends from the posterior abdominal wall here. So here we can see the vertebra. So from the posterior abdominal wall here, it sits into the curvature or concavity of the duodenum. Yes, so this is the concavity of the duodenum. From here it runs towards the left side and it reaches the hilum of the spleen. This is the spleen here. We can see the outline of the spleen in this. So it reaches the hilum of the spleen across the posterior abdominal wall. Right, and it lies behind the stomach. We can see this is the stomach here, the outline. This is the esophagus and this is the stomach. So it lies behind the stomach and it is separated from the stomach, that is the pancreas is separated from the stomach by the lesser sac. So lesser sac, it is a fold of the peritoneum that is seen. So that separates the stomach and the pancreas. Then it occupies the posterior part of the epigastrium. So this central part of the abdomen is called as the epigastrium. This is right hypochondrium and this is left hypochondrium. So the pancreas sits in the, or it occupies the posterior part of the epigastrium and also the left hypochondrium. This area is the left hypochondriac region. So the situation, you can say, posterior part of epigastrium and left hypochondrium. And now in the next slide we'll see about the shape of the pancreas. In this slide we can see the shape and size of the pancreas. So the pancreas, the shape resembles, this pancreas resembles a retort shaped flask. Right, so in this retort shape we have a bowl, a bulge like this. So in pancreas, that rounded area is represented by the head of the pancreas. So the shape, we can say, it resembles a retort shaped flask. And coming to the length will be 12 to 15 centimeters. Breadth is 3 to 4 centimeters. And the thickness, that is anteroposterior thickness, will be 1.5 to 2 centimeters, and the weight of the pancreas is around 80 to 90 grams. So shape is retort shaped flask and these are the measurements of the pancreas. Then in this slide we are going to see the presenting parts of the pancreas. So from right, so where we are seeing the duodenum, this is the right side and this is the left side. So from right to left, the parts are head, body. Between the head and the body we will see the neck. This constricted area what you are seeing is nothing but the neck. So head, neck, body and tail. So these are the parts. So the head is that part which is contained within this concavity of the duodenum. So this portion represents the head. And neck lies in front of the formation of portal vein. So in this image if we see, this dotted line represents the pancreas here, this outline. So this portion here, it is the neck. So the neck is lying in front of the formation of portal vein. This is the portal vein here. which is formed by the splenic and the superior mesenteric vein. This is superior mesenteric and this is splenic. Together they join to form the portal vein. So this formation of the portal vein lies posterior to the neck of the pancreas. Then body here. So next to the neck is the body. So this portion represents the body. So it is lying in front of the aorta. This red tube what you are seeing is the abdominal aorta. So the aorta, and from starting from the aorta the body extends till the kidney, left kidney. So this entire area represents the body of the pancreas. Next is the tail. So the tail extends between the two layers of lienorenal ligament. So this ligament is nothing but a fold of peritoneum which extends between the spleen. So anything related to spleen is called as lieno. And kidney, it is also called as renal. So the ligament extending between the spleen and the kidney is called as lienorenal ligament, which is a peritoneal fold. So the tail portion of the pancreas, it is lying in the lienorenal ligament. So the junction between the head and the neck here, it is represented by a groove for gastroduodenal artery in front. So if we just see this head and the neck, here you will find the gastroduodenal artery. In another picture I will show you that. So this is gastroduodenal artery. A groove is seen anteriorly at the junction of head and neck. Posteriorly we will see the right margin of groove of portal vein. So in the posterior aspect, now this is the portal vein. So portal vein, where it lodges on the pancreas, there is a groove formed on the pancreas. So that groove has got a right margin and a left margin. So the junction between head and neck, posteriorly you will see the right margin of groove for portal vein. Then the junction between neck and the body, uh, in front we this in this image we can see in front we cannot distinguish between the neck and the body, but posteriorly there is a groove again for left margin of the portal vein. So that represents the junction of neck and the body. Then junction between body and the tail, again anteriorly we cannot distinguish, but posteriorly separated by peritoneal and non-peritoneal areas, because the tail portion lies in the lienorenal ligament, so that is the peritoneal area, whereas the body posteriorly it is not covered by peritoneum, so that is a non-peritoneal area. In between these two, the junction, that is peritoneal and non-peritoneal areas, posteriorly we'll see the junction between body and tail. So these are the presenting parts. Next, we will see each part individually. What were the parts? The parts were head, neck, body and tail, right? So in that, the head has got two surfaces. They are anterior and posterior. So what actually is the head here? It is this portion. Enlarged right end of the pancreas, the right end. This is the left end and this is the right end. So the enlarged right end of the pancreas contained within this concavity of the duodenum, and that is the head. So this head is flattened from before backwards and lies at a lower level than the body. If we see, this body is at a higher level whereas the head is at a lower level. So the level of the head represents or it lies opposite to L1 and L2 vertebrae here. This is the head portion. And what are the presenting parts of the head? There are two surfaces, four borders and one process. The two surfaces are anterior surface and posterior surface. Four borders are the right border, left border, upper border and lower border. So four borders of the head. We are now talking only about the head of the pancreas. So two surfaces are anterior and on the other side you will see the posterior surface. Borders are upper, right, lower and left borders. And there is one process which is a projection from the head, that is called as uncinate process. So here in this diagrammatic representation we can see it better. This is called as the uncinate process, which is a projection from the lower part of the head. So these are the parts of the head. And in this slide we are going to see the relations of the head. So the anterior surface, this portion is the anterior surface. So it is directed forwards and laterally. The direction of the anterior surface we can say as it is directed forwards and laterally, and it is separated from the neck. This portion is the neck. So it is separated from the neck by, in this upper part we are seeing a groove for gastroduodenal artery. This one is the gastroduodenal artery. Yes, this is what I was telling about in the earlier slide. So this marks the junction between the head and the neck. So this is gastroduodenal artery. Right. Then the relations, coming to the relations, this upper portion of the head is non-peritoneal and it is related with the transverse colon. So this white area what you are seeing is all the non-peritoneal area in the upper part of the head, and that part is related to transverse colon, right? And then lower part, this green area is nothing but the lower part, and this is covered with peritoneum. And where from this peritoneum is coming? It is coming from the, or it is derived from the inferior layer of transverse mesocolon. So these two lines what you are seeing are representing the superior and inferior layers of transverse mesocolon. So this inferior surface of the head or lower part of the head, this is covered by peritoneum, and that peritoneum is derived from the inferior layer of transverse mesocolon. And this surface anteriorly it is related to coils of jejunum. Now here this concavity in the of the duodenum we will see, then the fourth part of the duodenum will continue as jejunum. Other parts of the small intestine are jejunum and ileum, right? So all the folds of jejunum and ileum you will see like this anterior to the lower part of the pancreas. So this surface is peritoneal, covered by the inferior layer of transverse mesocolon, and it is related to the coils of jejunum. Then here you are seeing an artery and a vein. These vessels represent the superior mesenteric vein and superior mesenteric artery. So in front of the uncinate process, this projection you are seeing, right? So this is the uncinate process. Uncinate process, and anteriorly you will see the superior mesenteric vessels. So the anterior relations are, the upper part is non-peritoneal related to transverse colon. Lower part is covered by the peritoneum derived from inferior layer of transverse mesocolon, and it is related to coils of jejunum. And anteriorly in front of the uncinate process you are going to see the superior mesenteric vessels. These are the anterior relations of head. Now coming to the posterior relations of the head of pancreas. So the posterior surface, so this outline again, this black outline what you are seeing is of the pancreas. So non-peritoneal, the posterior surface is non-peritoneal and it is directed medially backwards. So this posterior surface of the head, we are talking now only about the head. It is directed backwards and medially. And coming to the relations, now what are the structures that you are seeing in this line? This one is the inferior vena cava with both the renal veins. This is the right renal vein and this is the left renal vein. Renal vein is the vein that is draining the kidneys. This is on the left side. Right side it is not shown here, but this some part of the right renal vein we are able to see. So inferior vena cava along with the right and left renal veins forms one relation, posterior relation. Then next one is right crus of the diaphragm. And in this right crus of the diaphragm with the following structures that are there will be right middle suprarenal and gonadal arteries. So here in this right crus, the arteries that you will see are right middle suprarenal and gonadal arteries. Right celiac ganglion sometimes is seen here. Cisterna chyli and azygous vein also will be seen in this line. So if you just remember the right crus of diaphragm, it should contain all these structures. Right middle suprarenal artery, gonadal artery, right gonadal artery, right celiac ganglion, sometimes cisterna chyli and azygous vein also are seen in this line. So these form one more posterior relation. Then in this image if you see, this is the posterior surface of the pancreas. So here this green tube what you are seeing here, this is called as the bile duct. So bile duct lodges in a groove between pancreas and second part of the duodenum. So this duct sometimes penetrates the head. So this also forms a posterior relation for the pancreas. Then here in between the pancreas and the inferior vena cava, there are some structures situated behind the head. One is right sympathetic trunk and right psoas major muscle here. This one is the psoas major on the left side. So similarly, between the pancreas and the inferior vena cava, on this side, right side also, there will be right psoas major muscle. And also right sympathetic trunk. This chain what you are seeing is the sympathetic trunk on the left side. Similarly, there will be a sympathetic trunk on the right side also. And that sympathetic trunk intervenes between the pancreas, head of the pancreas and the inferior vena cava. So now what are the structures intervening between the head of the pancreas and inferior vena cava? One is right sympathetic trunk and right psoas major muscle. Also bodies and transverse processes of L1 and L2 vertebra, because the head is lying opposite the L1 and L2 vertebra, right? So they also come in between the inferior vena cava and the head of the pancreas. So these are the posterior relations of the head of the pancreas. Then what are the other parts of the head? Anterior surface and posterior surface are over. Now we should talk about the relations of the borders. So borders and the uncinate process. So the upper border is overlapped by the first part of duodenum. So in this image if we see, this is the first part of the duodenum. This is the second part. This is the third part. And here this will be the fourth part of the duodenum. So here this is the head, right? And this is the upper border. So the upper border of the pancreas is related to first part of the duodenum. Similarly, the right border is related to second part of duodenum and the lower border is related to third part of the duodenum and the left border is related to fourth part of the duodenum respectively, right? And in the groove between the pancreas and the duodenum, this groove between the duodenum and the pancreas, ventral and dorsal anastomosis of superior and inferior pancreatico-duodenal arteries are seen here. That means anteriorly as well as onto the posterior surface, there are ventral and dorsal anastomosis between superior and inferior pancreatico-duodenal arteries. So those anastomoses are seen in the groove between the duodenum and the pancreas, right? Then coming to the uncinate process. This is the uncinate process. This projection what you are seeing is the uncinate process. So it is a triangular projection and it arises from the lower and left part of the head. Now this is the lower part of the head and this is the left part of the head, right? So the uncinate process is a triangular projection that arises from lower and left part of the head of the pancreas, and it passes upwards and medially behind the superior mesenteric vessels. These are the superior mesenteric vessels, right? So the uncinate process runs upwards and medially behind the superior mesenteric vessels and lies on a posterior plane. That means the head and uncinate process and rest of the gland, if you see, the uncinate process lies posterior to the rest of the structures, right? And what are the relations? Now can you tell me what are the relations? In front there are superior mesenteric vessels. The vein lies on the right side and artery lies on the left side. So anterior relations to the uncinate process are superior mesenteric vessels. Then behind there will be abdominal aorta, right? In this image we can see abdominal aorta forms the posterior relation, and above the uncinate process. Now this projection what you are seeing is uncinate process, right? So just above that, this blue line what you are seeing is the left renal vein. So the relation uh, above to the uncinate process is left renal vein. Anteriorly superior mesenteric vessels, posteriorly abdominal aorta, and above it is I mean left renal vein is seen above the uncinate process. Now coming to the neck of the pancreas. So the neck, it consists, actually it connects the neck, head with the body, right? The neck connects the head of the pancreas with the body, and it is about 2 centimeters long. So that between the head and the body, the 2 centimeter area is the neck. It the direction will be forwards, upwards and to the left. You can see that it is running towards the left side, right? So forwards, upwards and to the left, um, because the head and the body meet at an angle. So the direction of the neck will be forwards, upwards and towards the left. Now what are the presenting surfaces of the neck? Neck presents anterior and posterior surfaces, upper and lower borders. So anterior surface, if we see, it is covered by the peritoneum of the lesser sac and related with, so in the neck area we will see the pyloric end of the stomach. Stomach has got a cardiac end in the upper part and pyloric end in the lower part. So that pyloric end of the stomach is related anteriorly to the neck of the pancreas. Then posterior surface of the neck is non-peritoneal and presents a shallow groove which contains the, this is the superior mesenteric vein, right? So vein in the lower part and trunk of the portal vein in the upper part. Now this area is the neck. Neck is related posteriorly to superior mesenteric vein in the lower part and trunk of portal vein in the upper part. And now coming to the upper border. Upper border is overlapped by first part of the duodenum. Here again the concavity will be there, right? So the upper border of the neck is related to the first part of the duodenum. And lower border here, it gives attachment. So here if we observe, the lower border gives attachment to the transverse mesocolon. So this lower border of the neck gives attachment to the transverse mesocolon. So these are the relations of the neck. Now coming to the body of the pancreas. So the body, it is prismoid in appearance, and if you take a cross section, the shape of it will be triangular, and it extends from the front of aorta to the left kidney. That's what we were discussing in the earlier slides, right? So the extent of the body is between the aorta and the left kidney. Now what are the presenting parts of the body? The body has got three surfaces: an anterior surface, or also called as anterosuperior surface, and there will be an inferior surface and a posterior surface. Because it is triangular, it is having three surfaces: anterosuperior, inferior, and there will be a posterior surface. So in this cross section, if we see, this will be anterosuperior surface, this will be inferior surface, and this is the posterior surface of the body. This area, this triangular area is representing the body of the pancreas. So this image is the sagittal section through the body of the pancreas. So in that, the body represents this triangular shape. So what are the presenting parts? There are three surfaces: anterosuperior, inferior, and posterior, and three borders. So what are the three borders? A superior border. So this pointed end what you are seeing will represent the superior border. Then this one will represent the anterior border, and this represents the inferior border. So three surfaces and three borders: superior, anterior, and inferior borders, anterosuperior, inferior, and posterior surfaces. Now coming to the anterior surface. So the anterior surface of the body is slightly concave, directed forwards and upwards, and it is covered with peritoneum of lesser sac. Like the neck, the anterior surface of the body is also covered by peritoneum of lesser sac, whereas the anterior surface of the head in the upper portion is non-peritoneal, related to transverse colon. And so this is the peritoneum of lesser sac, which is derived from the superior layer of transverse mesocolon. So this line represents the superior layer, and here you will see the inferior layer of the transverse mesocolon. So the body on its anterosuperior surface, it is covered by peritoneum of lesser sac, derived from superior layer of transverse mesocolon. Then coming to the relations, the inferior surface of the body, also called as inferior surface of the stomach, it is separated by lesser sac from the stomach bed. So in this section, if we see, now this is the pancreas. This dotted area is the pancreas, and this one represents, this is the section of stomach. So in between the stomach and the pancreas, this area is the lesser sac, also called as omental bursa. Okay, the lesser sac is also called as omental bursa. So this is separating the stomach and the pancreas. So that is about the anterior surface. Then coming to the inferior surface, it is directed here, see, downwards and forwards, and is covered with the peritoneum of greater sac. This layer, what you are seeing is this line represents the greater sac. So inferior surface is related to the peritoneum of greater sac, and it is derived from the inferior layer. Here if we see, this is the inferior layer of the transverse mesocolon, right? So this is related to the inferior surface of the body of pancreas. Then what we were talking about, here there are all jejunal folds, right, in the lower part of head of the pancreas. So here also the for the body the relation will be duodenojejunal flexure. This fold what you are seeing is called as the flexure. So this duodenojejunal flexure is related to the inferior surface, and also you will see few coils of jejunum and left colic flexure. What is this left colic flexure? Now the jejunum, then ileum. Ileum will continue as large intestine where there will be a bulge called as cecum and appendix. Then the cecum will continue as ascending colon, then transverse colon, then descending colon, right? So the point where the ascending colon will convert into transverse colon, that bend is called as right colic flexure. And the transverse colon, when it gets down to continue as the descending colon, that flexure is called as the left colic flexure. So that left colic flexure is related to inferior surface of body of pancreas. Right. Now coming to the posterior surface. So this will be the posterior surface of the body of pancreas. So it is entirely non-peritoneal, and the relations are, again, this is the abdominal aorta. This is this projection lines the striped area. This represents the left crus of the diaphragm. So that is one more relation. Then left psoas major along with this left sympathetic trunk. Then left suprarenal gland. So this is the kidney, right? Above the kidney there is suprarenal gland. So that forms one more relation. Then left kidney, uh, and also its hilum of the kidney, left renal vessels, and the left ureter. This one is the ureter. This yellow thing is the ureter. So that is one more relation. And then also left suprarenal and left gonadal veins will be seen here. So they are, this one is the gonadal vein, and this one is the left suprarenal vein. This small line what you are seeing, this blue line, that is the left suprarenal, and left gonadal veins, this is the left renal vein. So all these are related to the posterior surface of body of the pancreas. And one more important vein which you see posteriorly is the splenic vein. So the above mentioned structures, all these structures that we have seen now, are separated from the pancreas by the splenic vein, which runs in a groove from left to right and receives inferior mesenteric vein. See, this is the, right here we can see in the posterior surface. All that we have seen now, that is the aorta, the left crus of the diaphragm, left psoas major, left sympathetic trunk, left renal vessels, that is both artery and the vein, then the left suprarenal gland, left kidney, right, and this gonadal vein, left gonadal vein, and left suprarenal vein, all these structures, they are separated from posterior surface of the body by the splenic vein, right? So these are the posterior relations of the body. So we have completed the anterior surface, the inferior surface, and as well as the posterior surface of the body. Now coming to the borders. What were the borders that we have discussed? There is a superior border, anterior border, and an inferior border. So this angle here represents the superior border. This represents the anterior border, and this represents the inferior border. So the close to the right end, it presents a, now in this image if we see, right here. So this triangular projection you are seeing, right, this upward projection. So that projection on the superior border of the body is called as tuber omentale. So what is this tuberomental? It is a projection, conical projection on close to the right end of the superior border. So this tuberomental is related to celiac artery. Here this rounded area cross section what you are seeing is of the celiac artery. And towards its right side you will see the hepatic artery. So rest of the border, this complete upper border or the superior border, it is related to splenic artery. Tortuous splenic artery. This is tortuous splenic artery, right? So these are the relations of superior border. So first you have to talk about this tuberomental. Then tuberomental is related to celiac artery above, and towards its right there will be hepatic artery. Towards its left, the entire superior border of the body is related to the tortuous splenic artery. Then coming to the anterior border, this is the anterior border. So anterior border, it separates the anterior and inferior surfaces. This is the anterior surface and this is the inferior surface. So in between them we are seeing the anterior border. So it gives attachment to the root of the transverse mesocolon where the layers diverge. So this one, this line represents the anterior border. So here this blue area is all the uh, superior layer of transverse mesocolon, and this is the inferior layer of transverse mesocolon, and this line between them is called as the root of transverse mesocolon, which is attached along the anterior border of the pancreas, right? Then coming to the inferior border is related to the superior mesenteric vessels, right? At the right end of the body, here we can see the superior mesenteric vessels. So these are the relations of body. So in this image again we can see the superior border, tuberomental will be at this level, right end of the superior border. This complete thing is the superior border of the body, right? So here we will be seeing the tuberomental. So above the tuberomental, this one is the here about the tuberomental, this one is the celiac artery, and this large area is the abdominal aorta, right? From the abdominal aorta, here this is the celiac artery, and from there here on the right side we will see the hepatic artery, and left side we will see the splenic artery. So these are related to the superior border, and anterior border is giving attachment to the root of the transverse mesocolon, and inferior border is related to the superior mesenteric, sorry, these are the superior mesenteric vessels, artery and vein, superior mesenteric vessels. So these are the relations of body. Then coming to the tail. So the tail, it is a narrow left end of the gland. So this one, narrow left end of the gland, and passes between the two layers of what ligament? Lienorenal ligament, and reaches the hilum of the spleen here. And this tail is the most mobile part of the gland, lies at a higher level than the head. Head was at L1 and L2, right? Opposite the L1 and L2 vertebra. Whereas the tail will be at the level of T12 vertebra. So this point you have to note down. T12 vertebra, the level of the tail. And then coming to the relations, in front the tail is separated from the stomach by the lesser sac, and behind there will be spleen and the splenic vessels. The spleen, part of the spleen is seen, as well as the splenic vessels also will be seen posteriorly, and below we will see the left colic flexure. This one is the left colic flexure. So these are the relations of the tail. So now we'll talk about the pancreatic ducts. So the pancreatic ducts, there are two. One is the main pancreatic duct, which is called as duct of Wirsung, and there is an accessory pancreatic duct called as duct of Santorini. This one, this is accessory duct of Santorini, and this is the main pancreatic duct of Wirsung. So where is this main pancreatic duct starting? It is starting at the tail and it is running towards the right side till it reaches the duodenum. So this is the main pancreatic duct, and when it is traveling from left to right like this, it in the midway it is receiving all smaller pancreatic ducts. They all join to with the main pancreatic duct. So this kind of duct opening into the main pancreatic duct is called as herringbone pattern. Herringbone pattern, this one. And at the neck, the main duct, this is the neck region, right? So at the neck region, the main duct, if you observe, it runs downwards and forwards. Downwards, backwards and to the right, and reaches the posteromedial wall of the second part of duodenum. This is second part of the duodenum. This is the first part of the duodenum. This is second part of the duodenum. So at the neck region, the main pancreatic duct runs downwards, backwards, and reaches the posteromedial wall of the second part of duodenum, where it meets the bile duct. See here. This is green thing is the bile duct. So here the main duct, it is reaching the posteromedial wall of the duodenum, and it is joined by the bile duct. And both these ducts pierce the duodenal wall separately and later unite to form this ampulla. Ampulla of Vater, and this ampulla of Vater opens onto the major duodenal papilla about 8 to 10 centimeters distal to the pylorus. Now here the duodenum starts where the pyloric end of the stomach continues, right? So from that pyloric end to this major duodenal papilla, the length will be around 8 to 10 centimeters. So the ampulla of Vater, it is also called as hepatopancreatic sphincter. So here the major duodenal papilla, the location is on the second part of the duodenum, about 8 to 10 centimeters distal to the pylorus. So this is a normal thing. Occasionally you may see that the this main pancreatic duct and the bile duct may open separate with two separate openings into the duodenum. That is a variant we can see, but the normal pattern is once it reaches the neck, then it runs downwards and backwards and meets the bile duct. Both of them, they form the ampulla of Vater, and this ampulla of Vater opens onto the major duodenal papilla. This papilla lies 8 to 10 centimeters distal to the pyloric end of the stomach. Right? Then other one is the accessory duct of Santorini. So what does this do? It receives the secretions from the uncinate process. So this one is the uncinate process. So the secretions from the uncinate process will be drained through the will be transferred through the accessory pancreatic duct, and this passes upwards and to the right, and it connects to the um, major pancreatic duct, and finally it opens into the now this accessory pancreatic duct. From the uncinate process it reaches the major pancreatic duct, right? From there it opens into the duodenum again, and the opening of this accessory pancreatic duct is called as minor duodenal papilla, which is situated about 2 centimeters above and slightly ventral to the major papilla. This is the major papilla. So 2 centimeters above and slightly ventral to the major duodenal papilla. This is major and this is minor. So minor lies 2 centimeters above and slightly ventral to the major duodenal papilla. So these are the ducts of the pancreas, major and accessory pancreatic duct, main pancreatic duct and accessory pancreatic duct. Now these are certain variations that we'll see in the location and communication between the accessory and main pancreatic ducts. This is the main pancreatic duct and this is the accessory. Sometimes there may not be any communication between the accessory and the main pancreatic duct. And sometimes the accessory pancreatic duct may be seen at the inferior part of the main duct. Sometimes inferior part with the connection to the main pancreatic duct is seen in this image, whereas it is seen on its inferior part or lower side of the main pancreatic duct, and it has got no communication with the main pancreatic duct. It is opening separately. And sometimes this pattern H shaped communication can be there between the main and the accessory pancreatic ducts. The structure of the pancreas, I am not going into the details of this, but main things how to identify a slide is these are all the acini. Serous acini will be there. It is a serous gland. What is the other serous gland that you know? That is the parotid. So serous acini are seen which represent the exocrine part of the pancreas. Then the endocrine part of the pancreas is represented by this islets of Langerhans. This one. This is the endocrine part. And then you will see some blood vessels within the connective tissue, and there are ducts, intercalated ducts, intralobular ducts, interlobular, right? Striated ducts are usually absent in the pancreas. Now coming to the blood supply. So the arterial and venous drainage. So the head and the neck, these are supplied by the ventral and dorsal anastomosis of superior and inferior pancreatico-duodenal arteries. So these are the anastomoses that we are seeing, superior pancreatico-duodenal artery, and this is the inferior pancreatico-duodenal. So this line what you are seeing is representing the anastomosis, anterior anastomosis or ventral anastomosis. This light line what you are seeing is representing the posterior or dorsal anastomosis. So together this ventral and dorsal anastomosis between the superior and inferior pancreatico-duodenal arteries, they are supplying the head and neck of the pancreas. Then body and tail, they are supplied by the pancreatic branches of the splenic artery. Body and the tail, they are supplied by the pancreatic branches of the splenic artery. And then one more branch is there that is known as arteria pancreatica magna. So yeah, this one, this is the arteria pancreatica magna. Here we are seeing the splenic artery. The splenic artery is giving off smaller branches to supply the body and the tail, but it gives off a larger branch called as arteria pancreatica magna, and this accompanies the main pancreatic duct. Here the duct we have seen in the earlier slides, which starts from the tail and runs towards the right side, right? So the main pancreatic duct is accompanied by this arteria pancreatica magna. And sometimes a dorsal pancreatic branch derived from the splenic artery or the celiac trunk. There will be a dorsal pancreatic branch coming from this splenic artery or this one, dorsal pancreatic artery, this one, right? There will be a right dorsal pancreatic and left dorsal pancreatic. So they are derived either from the splenic artery or from the celiac trunk. So they supply the posterior surface of the pancreas. Now from these arteries, the capillary plexus are formed and they supply the islets and pancreatic acini separately. Now in the earlier slide we have seen the endocrine part of the pancreas is islets of Langerhans and the exocrine part is the serous acini. So all these arteries which are supplying the pancreas, they finally form the capillary plexus, and once they form the capillary plexus they will supply the individual cells and tissues, right? So the outflow of the blood from these islets drain into the acinar capillary network. So this produces the insular acinar portal system. Such portal system suggests a possible endocrine influence of the islet cells upon the exocrine portion of the pancreas. So just the point you have to note in here is from all these arteries, the capillary plexus are supplying the exocrine and endocrine parts separately, right? So that is the arterial supply. Then coming to the veins, the veins correspond to the arteries and drain into the splenic vein, right? And then the superior mesenteric vein here, and also the trunk of the portal vein. So the venous drainage is into the splenic vein. They follow the arteries and then drain into the superior mesenteric, splenic and portal veins. So this is the blood supply. Now coming to the lymphatic drainage. The lymphatic drainage is from the head and the neck, ventral and dorsal group of pancreaticoduodenal nodes. There will be this ventral, and also similarly on the posterior surface there will be dorsal pancreaticoduodenal nodes. So from the head and neck the lymphatics drain into these nodes, ventral and dorsal pancreaticoduodenal groups. Then from the body and the tail they drain into pancreaticosplenic nodes here. This one. Pancreaticosplenic nodes are there. So from body and the tail the lymphatics drain into the pancreaticosplenic nodes. And from all these nodes, the pancreaticoduodenal and pancreaticosplenic nodes, the efferents from these nodes they join the, or they finally drain into the celiac and superior mesenteric group of pre-aortic nodes. Now this is the abdominal aorta, and all these nodes what you are seeing are called as pre-aortic group of lymph nodes. So from the pancreas, the efferents from these nodes they finally drain into celiac and superior mesenteric group of pre-aortic nodes, right? So this is the lymphatic drainage. Then coming to the nerve supply. So the sympathetic nerves are derived from the celiac and superior mesenteric plexus. So the celiac plexus are there and superior mesenteric plexus, they are going to supply the sympathetic supply to the pancreas. And parasympathetics are derived from both right and left vagus nerves, and the parasympathetic activity is partly controlled by nerves and partly by the hormones. What are those hormones? The hormones are secretin and pancreozymin. So both the hormones are produced from the duodenal mucosa in response to entry of acidified gastric contents. So once the acidic food from the stomach it enters into the duodenum, then the secretin and the pancreozymin are released, and the pancreozymin initiates the release of digestive enzymes from the acinar cells, that is the exocrine part. Then secretin stimulates the release of an aqueous bicarbonate solution from the duct cells, and this conveys the enzymes in an inactive state until they reach the duodenum. So auto digestion of the pancreas is prevented because the secretin is released in an inactive state. So this is the nerve supply, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Now coming to the development of the pancreas. So the pancreas is developed in two parts, dorsal and ventral. Dorsal pancreatic bud and ventral pancreatic bud. So dorsal part arises as a diverticulum from the dorsal wall of the primitive duodenum, right here. And this portion, dorsal portion. And the whole of the neck, body and tail of the pancreas are derived, and the upper part of the head are developed from this dorsal bud. So the dorsal pancreatic bud is going to give rise to upper part of the head, then entire neck, body and tail, everything is derived from this dorsal pancreatic bud. Then ventrally there is a hepatopancreatic bud. So this lower portion, this is the pancreatic, ventral pancreatic bud, and this gives rise to the lower part of the body as well as the uncinate process. So the ventral part grows as a diverticulum from the commencement of primitive bile duct, which arises from the junction of foregut and midguts. So the ventral bud is going to give rise to the lower part of head and uncinate process. So this is the development of the pancreas. The development in detail will be discussed in the embryology class anyway. So this is the dorsal pancreatic bud and the ventral pancreatic bud. Then during midgut rotation, the ventral goes towards the dorsal side and they join together. From the dorsal bud, the upper part of the head, neck, body and tail are derived, and from the lower or from the ventral pancreatic bud, which actually rotates and goes beyond, that gives rise to the lower part of the head and uncinate process, right? So this is the development of pancreas. And one important developmental anomaly is a ring of pancreatic tissue that completely encircles the duodenum. Right, when the so this may occur when the ventral bud splits, becomes bifid, and the two segments may encircle the duodenum here. So this condition is called as annular pancreas. And if there is any inflammatory condition of the pancreas, then that can cause constriction of the duodenum, leading to obstruction of the duodenum. So that is the annular type of pancreas. So it can cause duodenal obstruction. Then this is the tumor in the pancreas. So this tumor are more common in the head of the pancreas. And if there is the malignant growth, what are the chances that here this is the bile duct, right? Bile duct is running from there and going to enter into the duodenum. So this growth may have a chance to obstruct the bile duct, and that obstruction of the bile duct will cause jaundice or compresses the portal vein. Now the neck is posteriorly related to the trunk of the portal vein, right? So this growth may compress the portal vein, producing ascites. That is, accumulation of fluid in the abdomen is called as ascites. So that can be one consequence, or it constricts the pylorus, producing pyloric obstruction. This growth may extend upwards, and because this area anteriorly is related to pyloric end of the stomach, right? So this growth may cause compression of the pyloric end of the stomach, resulting in obstruction, pyloric obstruction. So this tumor head of the pancreas may compress the bile duct, resulting in jaundice, may compress on the portal vein, resulting in ascites. Sometimes it may compress onto the pyloric end of the stomach, causing pyloric obstruction. So this is the tumor in the head of the pancreas. Then there are some pancreatic cysts. So the location of the pancreatic cyst usually in the tail and in the body, as well as in the uncinate process. So in these areas, some cystic lesions can be seen in the pancreas. Then blockage of hepatopancreatic ampulla, ampulla of Vater or hepatopancreatic ampulla, that is where the bile duct and the main pancreatic duct will join to form the ampulla of Vater. So that can be obstructed. Now what could be the reason behind those obstruction is, one common reason is uh, a gallstone passing along the extrahepatic bile passages. So that gallstone may lodge in a constricted, this distal end where the ampulla of Vater opens onto the duodenum, that is little constricted. So the stone can cause a blockage of that constricted area. In this case, both the biliary and pancreatic duct system are blocked, and neither bile nor the pancreatic juice can enter into the duodenum. So however, bile may back up the entire back up and enter the pancreatic duct, usually resulting in pancreatitis. So because of the blockage, the bile which has to go into the duodenum, that will go into the pancreatic duct, and that causes inflammation of the pancreas, which is called as pancreatitis. And a similar reflux of bile sometimes results from spasms of the hepatopancreatic sphincter. So normally the sphincter of the pancreatic duct prevents reflux of bile into the pancreatic duct. However, if this ampulla is obstructed by the gallstone, the weak pancreatic duct sphincter may be unable to withstand the excessive pressure of the bile in the hepatopancreatic ampulla. And if the accessory pancreatic duct connects with the main pancreatic duct and opens into the duodenum, it may compensate for an obstructed main pancreatic duct or spasm of the hepatopancreatic sphincter. Right, so that is the blockage of the hepatopancreatic ampulla resulting in pancreatitis. Right, so in this animation we can see how the bile from the bile duct and pancreatic juices from the main pancreatic duct, they are entering into the duodenum. But now this gallstone has traveled in the bile duct, it has reached the hepatopancreatic ampulla, and it has obstructed. See, this is the normal flow. Okay, but the stones which are already present here in the gallstone, they may enter into this passage. This one is the stone, and it can block this hepatopancreatic ampulla, resulting in pancreatitis. So if it is a chronic condition, if the pancreatitis has been there, the patient is suffering from it for longer periods, then it is called as chronic pancreatitis. So in most of the in these cases, the treatment option will be removal of the pancreas. So a procedure called as pancreatectomy. The anatomical relationships and the blood supply of the head of the pancreas, bile duct, and duodenum make it impossible to remove the entire head of the pancreas. So, usually, a rim of the pancreas is retained along the medial border of the duodenum to preserve the duodenal blood supply. If you want, we cannot remove the pancreas in one piece because that will disturb the blood supply of the duodenum also. So, just a rim of pancreatic tissue along the medial border is left off to preserve the blood supply to the duodenum. That point should be noted. So this is the normal gallbladder, and here the gallbladder with the stones. So in chronic conditions, chronic cases, what happens, the gallstones and the calcifications will in dilated pancreatic duct will be then, and the pancreas is inflamed here. So here it is called as chronic pancreatitis. Whereas in an acute condition, what do they block? The gallstones will block the pancreatic duct here. Here they are dilating it. whereas here they are completely blocking it. So complete blockage of the main pancreatic duct results in an acute pancreatitis, whereas the dilation of the main pancreatic duct results in a chronic pancreatitis. Then sometimes accessory pancreatic tissue will develop in the stomach, duodenum, ileum or ileal diverticulum, but mostly in the stomach and the duodenum are the two areas more common sites for the accessory pancreatic tissue may be seen. So from this tissue may show islets, and islet cells that produce glucagon and insulin from these cells can be seen whenever if there is accessory pancreatic tissue. And most of the clinical aspect that we have seen related to the pancreas is related to the gallstones and the bile duct, main pancreatic duct, like that. But the direct effect to the pancreas, that means most exocrine pancreatic problems are secondary to biliary problems. Till now, what we have seen all related to the biliary problems. But pancreatic injury can result, however, from sudden, severe, forceful compression of the abdomen, such as force of impalement on a steering wheel in an automobile accident. In that forceful compression will occur. So because the pancreas lies transversely, the vertebral column acts as an anvil and the traumatic force may rupture the pancreas. So rupture of pancreas frequently tears its duct system, so allowing the pancreatic juice to enter in the parenchyma of the gland and to invade adjacent tissues. So digestion of the pancreatic and other tissues by pancreatic juice is quite painful. So that results in inflammation and pain here. So the duct is ruptured here. All the smaller ducts which were opening into the main pancreatic duct, they are ruptured. So the juice which was there in the pancreatic juice which was there within these ducts, that is entering into the surrounding parenchyma and eating away the pancreas. So that results in this inflamed pancreas. So this is one more clinical aspect. So mostly the problems are secondary to the biliary problems, but sometimes a compression effect in road traffic accidents can result in rupture of the pancreas, resulting in inflammation. Thank you.